Hello everybody and welcome to part 13 of What If Izuku Midoriya Had the Omnitrix, the complex word for Omnitrix. Yes. Well, part 13, continuation of the Yakuza fight. If you are enjoying the series and want to see more, don't forget to leave a like to let me know, subscribe to get notified of stuff, and leave a comment because I like reading them and I like answering if I see a potential answer. Yes. All that said, please enjoy the video. The heroes had invaded the Yakuza's base of operations, slowly taking them down one by one. Overhaul had set up the situation so he could escape while everyone fought, but his plans were disturbed by the hero Lemillion, who managed to get the upper hand and force Chisaki into a fight. Overhaul became so desperate during said fight that he was forced to fuse himself with 3 of his henchmen. Both Lemillion and the amalgam Overhaul fought over Eri, all while Mirio had to keep her safe. While doing so, Overhaul gathered information, learning how Mirio fought. Eventually, he managed to get the upper hand in battle, but the moment he did, Midoriya came bursting into the room as Humongousaur, hitting Chisaki with some debris. How annoying, Chisaki said as Changeling, Night Eye, and Eraserhead entered the room. He put his hands to the ground wanting to rearrange the battlefield once more to get rid of them, but his quirk didn't seem to work. Changeling! Eraser, be careful! Don't let him touch you! Mirio warned as both of them went to attack Overhaul. Midoriya slammed into Overhaul, pushing him back. He put his hands together and hit him under the chin. Then he smashed his fist into his head. Overhaul wanted to heal himself, but his quirk was blocked. He tried to punch Midoriya, but Eraser stopped the fist with his binding scarf, still keeping his distance. Are you alright, Mirio? Night Eye asked, approaching his mentee. He was a bit worried seeing the shape Mirio was in. He seemed tired and was bleeding out of his legs. It's but a scratch, Mirio answered with a smile. Just make sure to keep Eri safe. Night Eye grabbed the girl and started heading towards the entrance that Midoriya had created. Sure, he could assist in battle, but the other 3 were better suited for this specific threat. Knowing that she would be safe with his mentor, Mirio went back into the ground. He came out punching Overhaul. He then seeped back into the concrete just as Midoriya started punching Overhaul. He managed to get 4 good hits in before Overhaul got his bearings and caught his fist. Midoriya tried to punch himself free, but Overhaul caught his other fist. His quirk may have been cancelled out, but he still had his amalgam body he could move, so he started punching Midoriya with the extra arms. Midoriya, get back! Aizawa ordered. He knew his own limits and was about to blink. Midoriya used his head, trying to headbutt Overhaul away, but he just caught that attack. Luckily, Mirio shot out of the ground, uppercutting him. The uppercut had enough power that Overhaul was forced to free Midoriya, not to mention he was sent flying into the air. Just then, Aizawa blinked for only a moment. The moment Chisaki's quirk started working again, 2 arrows shot out of his head. They went straight for Mirio. Mirio, in order to not be hit, activated his quirk, letting the arrows pass through him, but by doing that, the hour hand ended up piercing Aizawa barely. Still, it did nonetheless, while the minute hand pierced Midoriya. Chrono's quirk activated upon the hit, meaning Aizawa would be slowed down for an hour and Midoriya for a minute. But before Chisaki could tear the 2 heroes apart using his own quirk, Aizawa opened his eyes enough to activate his quirk, cancelling Overhaul's. Mirio then smashed both pieces of hair that extended out of Overhaul, snapping them like twigs. Overhaul then rushed at Mirio, but he again made himself intangible. Overhaul just went right through him. He kept going, however, heading towards Aizawa. Mirio again extended his quirk into the environment, submerging Aizawa and Midoriya and shooting them out a couple meters away. If I'm not mistaken, Midoriya is in his Humongousaur form, right? He told me about his transformations the other day, and I'm pretty sure that's the sturdy one, so I just gotta focus on Eraserhead. Mirio thought, jumping into the ground and jumping out to grab Aizawa before he hit the ground himself. Being in slowed down time didn't help extend Aizawa's quirk duration. The air still irritated his eyes nonetheless, and he was forced to blink. The moment Chisaki's quirk returned, he pressed one of his hands to the floor. Night Eye had made it to the hallway and continued running, heading towards an exit, but he was still within Overhaul's reach. Chisaki extended the battlefield, blocking Night Eye from escaping with the girl. Changeling, the moment his quirk stops affecting you, I want you to make an opening for Sir and Eri to escape through. Make sure you all get out of here, Miro said, placing Aizawa gently on the ground. He then went on the offensive, keeping Chisaki distracted. A full minute had passed since Midoriya had been hit by the minute hand, so he did exactly as instructed. He headed towards Naya to make an exit for him to escape through, but as he made his way towards him, Overhaul kept erecting barriers in front of him. He was in the middle of battling Mirio, but was also trying to keep Midoriya and Night Eye at bay. Night Eye was dodging blow after blow, but eventually was too much for him. He was hit with a blunt column in the back of the head, knocking him out. Chisaki saw his opportunity. Mirio was out of range and the one keeping Eri safe was incapacitated. He rearranged the floor under Eri, making a small pitfall into some spikes. But before Eri could fall into them, Midoriya leaped forward, grabbing both Eri and Night Eye and putting them on his chest. He held them tightly as they fell, breaking the spikes. "Ah, that hurts," Midoriya whispered while getting up. "You okay?" The frightened girl held onto Midoriya's giant finger and nodded. Midoriya put her on one of his shoulders and Night Eye on the other. "Hang tight, okay?" he told the girl before he started climbing out of the pitfall. While he climbed, Midoriya started reevaluating his options. Aizawa and Night Eye are both incapacitated. Our main priority is keeping the girl safe, so I should grab both of them and leave. Miro can keep Overhaul distracted for that time. Once he made it out of the hole, he grabbed Night Eye and Eri in his hands and headed towards Aizawa, grabbing him as well. He had everyone who could be used as a hostage by Overhaul, so he ran out, wanting to leave Mirio to it. While Midoriya headed towards the exit, Miro kept fighting on, trying to keep Chisaki distracted. As he fought, Miro suddenly felt a giant spike of pain throughout his lower back. It was as if his body was being torn apart. The massive spike of pain dwarfed any amount of pain he had ever felt before, which made it impossible for him to concentrate on using his quirk. In tremendous pain, he let out a giant scream. Overhaul finally had his chance. Lemillion had managed to dodge death many times throughout their battle, but now he was about to visit its doorstep. Midoriya heard the pain scream and turned his attention towards the battlefield. He saw Mirio fall to his knees and Overhaul ready to deliver the finishing blow. "Don't let him touch you," he remembered Mirio say. Midoriya hit the Omnitrix, switching to his Crystal Sapien form. As he transformed, both of his teachers and Eri fell to the ground, but Midoriya was able to knock Overhaul back with a well-placed energy blast. Overhaul put his hand to the ground and tried to kill Eri once more, but Midoriya broke the ground as it started transforming, keeping her safe. Realizing that Overhaul couldn't win from a distance against Midoriya, he rushed at the boy. Midoriya kept shooting blast after blast, but he just kept missing. Overhaul tried to use Sakaki's quirk to keep Midoriya off balance, but it didn't seem to work on him, so he was just dodging the attacks while approaching Midoriya. Once he was close enough, Overhaul reached for Midoriya with his hand, trying to tear him apart. Midoriya let out a massive release of energy, wanting to push Chisaki away, but Overhaul managed to touch him with the tip of his finger. In what looked like an explosion, Crystal was torn apart, reduced to a multitude of shards. "Now do you understand, Eri? This is all because of you. All what these heroes have done, and all this suffering is because of you," Overhaul said as the shards of what used to be Izuku Midoriya fell to the ground. Believing the death of the hero, of Midoriya, was her fault, Eri started crying. "Now let's go before someone else dies because of you." As Overhaul reached one of his hands towards Eri, a stamp shot towards him, uppercutting him. He stumbled back because of the impact reeling from the attack. "That's not something you should say to a young girl," Night Eye said, getting back up on his feet. The constant shaking and falling on the ground managed to wake him up, but it took a moment for him to compose himself and get up. "I'm afraid I can't allow you to lay a single finger on that girl." "You want to die too? Fine. Just know this, Eri. This is all because of you," Overhaul said. "No," Eri said with a cracked voice. She had grabbed a couple of Midoriya shards along with what used to be his watch and wrapped them in the cape that Miro had put on her. If the cape could make her feel safe, then it might be able to accomplish a miracle. She wanted to go with Overhaul. She wanted all of this to end, but Night Eye wouldn't let her. Night Eye used his quirk on Overhaul. He engaged in battle, attacking where he could. Of course, he wanted to defeat the villain, but he knew he wouldn't be able to. His best hope was waiting for someone to relieve him. He managed to evade Overhaul for about 37 seconds until he as well was defeated. Wait. The screaming stopped. Overhaul thought. He was about to kill this bother but hesitated for only a second to look at where Mirio used to be. Sure enough, the hero was no longer there. Night Eye used this chance to gain some distance while wondering why the future he had just seen didn't happen. Mirio then popped out of the ground, kicking Chisaki in the face. He then landed on the floor and attacked twice more, unleashing as much strength as he could without hurting himself. Chisaki was forced to step back to heal himself. Mirio used the chance to reconvene with Night Eye and discuss strategy. "Where's Midoriya?" he asked after not seeing him anywhere. "Dead," Night Eye coldly answered, "just as we're going to be if we can't defeat Chisaki. Are you alright?" "Just fine," Mirio answered, fighting through the pain. Night Eye could tell something was off, that Mirio was in incredible pain, but they needed to fight on or else they'd all be dead. "Why won't you just die?" Overhaul screamed, all his annoyance and anger coming to the forefront. He had been forced to become this abomination in order to fight them and was just sullying his hands more and more as things went on. "Because we're going to save the girl," both of them answered, compelled by Nemoto's quirk. As Overhaul's blow came, Mirio went intangible, letting it pass through him. Night Eye countered the attack, throwing one of his stamps at Overhaul's face. The stamp was slightly off its mark. It did hit Overhaul, but it had little effect. Overhaul was sick and tired of the fight. He was just broadcasting Nemoto and Sakaki's quirks, throwing everyone off balance. Luckily, the heroes were skilled enough to mostly ignore its effects. Mirio then punched Overhaul in the gut. Ordinarily, such a hit would be enough to defeat any villain, but the combined resistance of the Amalgam Overhaul allowed him to tank the hit. As he flew back, 2 arrows came flying out of Chisaki's hair. The hour hand headed towards Mirio, while the minute hand went towards Night Eye. Mirio tried to use his quirk and let the arrow pass through him, but the pain surged inside his body, stopping him. So the hour hand managed to hit Mirio just as the minute hand hit Night Eye. Chisaki smirked and activated his own quirk, but nothing happened. "So annoying," he whispered after spotting Aizawa, who over the last 2 minutes had struggled to reposition himself in a way so he could help out in the fight. He had been moved so much over the past 7 minutes that he never got a chance to help, but now he could. "Oh well, I suppose you can't really stop me anymore." He walked over to Eri to grab her. Of course, Mirio, Night Eye, and Aizawa tried to stop him, but they were all going far too slowly to do anything. "Come now, Eri, it's time to go," Overhaul said, raising his hand towards Eri. She couldn't help but see the monster he had turned himself into and crawled away, dropping the cape along with the shards of Midoriya. "If you come now, then these nice people will make it out alive. Or do you want their deaths on your conscience as well?" A sharp green light started emanating from right next to Overhaul, and all the shards of the destroyed Midoriya started flying together. "What now?" Overhaul said, annoyed. The body was reassembled together, and Midoriya now appeared as one of his older transformations, Crystal Fist. "I'm still alive?" Midoriya asked himself, looking at his hands. He instantly recognized the form he was in. "Come! Now, Eri!" Overhaul screamed, using Nemoto's quirk to try and compel her. But before she could do anything, Midoriya erected a barrier between the two. "You aren't going anywhere with her," he sternly said. Midoriya had a quick look at the battlefield, seeing that Mirio was slowly sinking into the ground. Aizawa was looking on from the sidelines, not to mention Night Eye, who was next to Mirio. Izuku quickly created diamond barriers around them too, so Overhaul couldn't kill them. "This just keeps getting more annoying," Overhaul said as he was now forced to fight Midoriya in his Patrosapien form. Midoriya knew he wouldn't be able to defeat Overhaul, but he would hold out as long as he could. Overhaul tried to use his quirks on the boy, but both Nemoto and Sakaki's quirks seemed to have no effect on Midoriya in his alien form, and he needed to make contact for the other quirks to work. but Midoriya just kept erecting barriers to stop that from happening. After fighting with the Hisakai and the heroes, Toga and Twice made their retreat, stealthily crawling through the altered environment so they wouldn't be spotted. While they did this, they were discussing ways to make the Hisakai suffer for what they did to Magna. "Mind if I tag along?" a man wearing an iron mask asked, sneaking up behind the two villains. After he made his presence known, Twice created a clone of Shigaraki telling him to kill Michael. "I'm the leader. Where do you get off giving me orders?" the Shigaraki clone asked as it rushed Michael, ready to kill the threat. "Easy, I'm not here to fight," Michael said, dodging the clone's attacks. "My subordinates seem not to believe you, and I'm more inclined to trust them than someone I don't even know," Shigaraki answered as he kept trying to kill Michael. All he needed was to touch him. "So be it," Michael said, shooting out one of his blasts at the clone, absorbing what little energy it had. "That just felt empty," he complained after feeling how little energy the clone had. Toga then showed up behind him, hitting him with her knife. Michael raised his arm to block, letting the metal glove stop the blow. Toga then jumped back, hitting Michael in the chin with her heel, sending the mask flying into the air. "Ugh! Disgusting!" Twice shouted. "I could vomit at the sight!" "That's rude," Michael said as he grabbed his mask and put it back on. "But I guess there is a reason I keep the mask on. I do assure you, I do not want to fight you." "What do you want then, Michael?" Toga asked, trying to contain her desire to stab the guy. "Why, join you, of course," Michael answered. "Why would a member of the Yakuza want to join the league? Aren't you like super loyal to Overhaul?" Toga asked, slightly intrigued. "Personally, I couldn't care one bit what happens to Overhaul. As long as I get a reliable source of energy, I'll be satisfied. Joining the Yakuza was better than feeding off dogs on the street," Michael said. "All I want is power. As long as you give me that power, I'll happily switch sides. The Yakuza are going down anyway, so it seems like the ideal moment to jump ship." "How do we know we can trust you?" Toga asked. "Yeah, you're part of the 8 Bullets, Chizaki's big fan club," Twice said. "Just let him join. He's a very nice guy." "I suppose you can't, but as a sign of good faith, I am willing to give you these," Michael said, pulling out a case with 10 quirk-negating bullets. "I'll also tell you everything I know about them." "I think Tomer is going to like this," Toga commented after taking a look at the bullets. "Okay, you're in. But what are we supposed to call you? The name Michael isn't that dynamic," Twice said. "I suppose you could call me Dark Star," Michael answered. The three of them then discussed their best course of action and acted upon it. Their objective was to get the heroes and Hisakai to weaken each other as much as possible. To that end, Twice made a clone of Mr. Compress and tunneled to the surface. There, Toga licked the blood of her knife, transforming into a Eraserhead. She then rushed to where Team Ryukyu was fighting Katsukami. "Uraraka, we need backup. The target's directly under the crossroads down there," Toga said as Aizawa, holding her arm up and making it seem like he was limping. "Chizaki's too strong. We need reinforcements." Listening to what her teacher said, Uraraka, Tsuyu, and the others crashed the villain they were fighting down into the ground. Just as she was told, the ground there was thinner than in other parts, so it collapsed, intersecting both fights. Katsukami came crashing to Overhaul Midoriya's fight, falling right on top of Midoriya. This was his chance. Chizaki quickly grabbed onto Eri and reformed the ground, bringing himself closer to the surface. As they went up, Eri saw Miro's cape flapping in the wind. She struggled to grab it, wiggling out of the hold she was in to try and reach it. She managed to grasp onto the cape. As she did, emotions started flowing through her. For the little girl, the cape represented hope. She held the cape tightly to her body, unintentionally unleashing her stored-up energy. Because of this energy, the amalgamation that Overhaul had turned himself into split apart into its 4 component parts. The form holding onto her no longer existed, so Eri was accidentally released, sending her falling towards the ground. On the ground, Midoriya used his diamonds to free himself from under Katsukami. The moment he was free, he looked up and saw Eri falling. Midoriya put both of his hands towards the ground without missing a beat and catapulted himself into the air. As he flew to catch the girl, a red flash of light emanated from Midoriya's body. He emerged out of it in his human form. Why did it have to time out now of all times? I've barely used it the last few days just to have enough energy for this, and it didn't even last an hour, Midoriya thought while panicking. He wouldn't be able to properly stick the landing while not being transformed. He still intersected with Eri in midair, grabbing onto the girl as she was falling. He had shot himself with enough force that they still kept going up. Eri's quirk was still going haywire as she embraced Midoriya. She was willing. She was now ready to be saved, especially if it was by the one who had held her with such kindness for the first time. Eri's energy started affecting Midoriya's body, making his hair grow back in ever so slightly. It even affected the Omnitrix. Even after grabbing onto Eri, Midoriya and Eri kept flying up, but they had lost some of their kinetic energy, so there was a chance they wouldn't be able to make it out of the underground labyrinth. "Gravity!" Midoriya shouted after realizing that they wouldn't make it to the surface after all. Uraraka quickly reacted, rushing to the edge of the hole and extending her hand to catch Midoriya. Midoriya reached out as well while still grabbing onto Eri. They were so close, even managing to touch one of their fingertips, but it wasn't enough for Chako to use her quirk on him. As gravity started taking hold, Uraraka concentrated all of her energy into her hands. The things that Lucky Girl had taught her during their internships were all rushing through her head. Pink energy emanated from her hand, extending to touch Izuku's. Gravity stopped affecting him and the girl, and they were slowly pulled up until Izuku grabbed Uraraka's arm. Uraraka then pulled up quickly, helping Izuku up. The Omnitrix made a strange noise when the two hands made contact, but with all that was going on, Midoriya didn't hear it. "Release!" Uraraka commanded, putting her hands together and allowing gravity to affect Midoriya and Eri once they were safe. "Thanks, Uraraka," Midoriya said while placing Eri gently on the ground. "Are you okay?" Midoriya asked the girl. The little girl nodded for a moment, thinking everything was safe, but terror returned to her face as a giant spike of concrete flew back towards them. Midoriya quickly grabbed the girl and jumped out of the way just as Uraraka did the same. "Give Eri back!" Overhaul shouted as he used the concrete column he had shot at the heroes as a bridge, approaching the situation. The heroes on the surface got ready to engage with the villain. Midoriya looked at his wrist as Chisaki approached. How did it power up so quickly? He wondered. Never had the Omnitrix timed in so quickly. Overhaul made it to the surface and touched the ground, sending a barrage of spikes at all the nearby heroes. From the air, Nejire powered up an attack and shot it out with an output strength of 30. Chisaki saw it coming and erected a barrier blocking the attack. A bunch of concrete columns then came flying at Nejire, which he started dodging. After dodging the columns that came at him and knowing the Omnitrix was powered up, Midoriya hit it. He wanted to finish this quickly, so he didn't even bother checking which transformation he had selected. Once the ensuing flash of light dissipated, Midoriya had turned into a new alien. He had become a giant, bulky, reddish-brown monster with rocky skin, a giant mouth with big, rocky teeth, and a molten lava core at the center of his body. "Well, this is new," Midoriya thought to himself, confused at what he should do. "What does this one do?" Uraraka asked, thinking Midoriya had something up his sleeve. She had never seen him turn into this form before and was even trying to think of names, although she couldn't come up with anything good. "I don't know," Midoriya answered while raising his hands, surprising Ochako. He accidentally activated his ability, throwing Overhaul into the air and releasing him, making him fall back into the ground. "Oh, so that's what I can do," Midoriya said to himself. He extended his arms and shot Overhaul back into the air, in a way that the villain couldn't touch anything. Instinctively, Midoriya turned into a floating ball, attracting Chisaki towards him. The villain had no way of touching anything, and could do no harm as a result, so he was easy to disable from there. With the head of the organization taken down, the rest of the Yakuza went down easily. The members of the League even had to retreat as the police and heroes would start surveying the area soon. At 9:19 a.m., the operation to take down the Yakuza ended with no casualties. While the raid was going on, in another part of Japan, an aerophibian entered the atmosphere, landing in some back alleyway. Once it had landed, it transformed into Izuku Midoriya. If I'm not mistaken, and of course I'm not, this is the planet where the wielder of the Omnitrix resides. All I have to do now is locate him, Obito said to himself. Should be easy enough given my advanced intellect. And that's the end of the video, telling us that we'll see Albedo again very soon. If you enjoyed as always, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button, and leave a comment. Tell me what ultimate forms you would like to see and maybe some powers they would have? I don't know. You can also check out my Discord link in the description below if you want, and just wait for more content, I guess. You can watch old one if you want, but wait for new one. More coming next week. Until next time, everyone, have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye!